Yeah, both of these players sitting at 7-0. So the winner of this match locks up a top 8 berth.
And Mike on the play here leads off with the Swamp, and Gino with a Mountain and a Fire Drinker Satyr.
There's that rascal. I've heard a lot about this card this weekend, mostly from Brian Brown-Duin, who hates it with a burning, fiery passion.
It's quite potent. Gino's list is going a little bit higher up the curve here, a small devotion element to it with 4 copies of Boros Reckoner and 4 copies of Fanatic of Mogus in his list. Another Mountain and an attack here from Gino, offering up the trade with the Pack Rat. Mike says no thank you, takes 2 and falls to 18.
Mike has bigger plans for that Pack Rat, no doubt. This is a matchup where Pack Rat is often too slow, though.
Certainly on the draw, it is really often too slow. On the play, it has a chance.
True. Yeah, you'll get in situations a lot where you make your first rat, so you have 2 2/2s. Those guys can't block. And then on your next turn, in theory, you can make your third rat, so there are 3 3/3s, and then you can shove in front of 3 of the aggressor's creatures who are all 2 power. But that sets you're setting yourself up to get completely blown out by any interaction by doing that.
And taking a lot of damage along the way here, as you see. Mike just play his third land and pass the turn back. Gino now with his board, a Fire Drinker Satyr, an Eidolon of the Great Revel. We'll see how he wants to attack.
The upside for the Pack Rat player there is that making rats is not casting rats. So Eidolon of the Great Revel not going to do a ton of work here.
So a third land here and a Chandra's Phoenix. That's going to trigger the Eidolon. Gino falls to 18. I imagine we're about to see an attack with all the troops.
Yeah, I know Gino likes to attack. He's going to leave the flyer behind.
Interestingly, they're not attacking with the Phoenix and sending just the Satyr and the Eidolon.
So this is either he could be choosing to be defensive here, leave back to work as a speed bump and then bring it back with a burn spell in the next turn. May have just forgotten that the Chandra's Phoenix had haste. That's a real possibility as well.
And possibly if he attacks there with the Chandra's Phoenix, that would have been enough to compel Mike to block at least 1 creature. Instead, he's going to take the whole shot here, falling to 14. Plays a Swamp now on his 4th turn. He's going to send both the rats.
All right. Mike thinks this is a race he can win.
And so here before damage, he's going to make a 3rd rat here.
Okay. I'm willing to agree with him here. This seems reasonable. That would be incoming for 8 if he makes a rat and activates Mutavault this turn.
So there's going to be the rat here and then no further effects.
Okay.
This allows him to make a 4/4 rat on defense, which is a little bit more stable of a blocker.
Sure. All right. And still cracking back with a potential 15 on the next turn, and actually just 12 with the rats, so doesn't even need to activate the Mutavault on his next swing. So the clock math works out in his favor there.
So we're going to see a Burning Tree Emissary here. That's going to trigger the Eidolon, and now Fanatic of Mogus here. That's for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 points of damage.
That's a lot of damage.
It's going to knock Sigrist down to 6.
And Sigrist with 3 potential attackers here can punch through the 1 blocker to knock Mike to 2, but not enough for the win here, so just swings with the flyer.
So that's the attack. That's going to bring Sigrist down to 4.
And Mike needs some big plays on this next turn.
And the game just like that swung back into Gino's favor. A draw here for Mike. It's another Swamp.
Yeah, take 8s will do that. Yeah, that Fanatic of Mogus did excellent work turning a game around.
And you go look back to last turn there with the no attack, or 2 turns ago rather, the no attack, no block with Chandra's Phoenix. That 2 points of damage would have made a really big difference the way this game is playing out.
It definitely would have. It would have been enough to close the game out this turn. Having said that, there's not a lot that Mike can do to pull back in this. A Gray Merchant would give him some life to wiggle with. That would be his biggest play here. I don't think there is any way for him to actually punch through here. There's no sequence of removal spells that actually clears the way in any meaningful sense.
And he's pinned on casting certain spells too because of the Eidolon.
Correct. Yeah, actually, Gray Merchant is one of the few spells that he can actually afford to cast.
And you look down the list here, Gray Merchant, of course, is good for him here. Desecration Demon does nothing.
No.
And everything else is 3 or less, so that's triggering the Eidolon. Mike trying to figure it out.
Yeah, it actually is just Great Merchant or bust here, I think. And one of these situations where if you're Gino, you know he doesn't have it. If he had it, he'd be jamming it.
Yeah.
So Mike is going to position his rats, think, okay, if I block here, here, and here, no. How about here, here, and here? Does have a Mutavault actually to block with as well. So on board, he's actually stable for the turn. He takes 2 from the Phoenix again and is still alive. He has to assume that he is dead to pretty much any spell here.
And so Mike here looks like he's ready to offer up an attack.
Yeah, if you're Mike, he's going through that process where he says, okay, well, I'm dead to anything. What's my play if Gino literally has mountains?
Yeah.
2 mountains in hand, X mountains on top of the deck, however many he needs. How can I win given that scenario? Because that's the only way I can win.
It's a really important skill in Magic is identifying, well, I can beat nothing, so I have to play around nothing.
Right.
How do I proceed?
And no, okay. I haven't done that math on Mike's end myself. I would imagine that he can afford to attack with 1, because of course he can make 1 rat and activate Mutavault.
Well, in the event, imagine that Gino blocks a rat with Fanatic of Mogus, then that forces Mike to make a rat and animate Mutavault right away to keep his rat alive, so he'll be down the Mutavault on defense.
Sure, or he can just trade the rat with the
that's
the
it.
Fanatic.
Yeah, you can also trade.
Okay. Now, the attack with 2 rats, that's... Okay, all right, so Gino being at 10, he actually has to block at least one of the rats here. So he is going to... All right, he is safe to attack with 2 rats.
Yep.
If he chooses not to block at all, Mike just makes a rat, activates Mutavault, and Gino takes 10.
So there's some trading here. The Fanatic killing one of the rats, and then the other rat becoming a 2/2.
Yeah, Mike he could afford to actually keep 1 rat by activating Mutavault in the sense that he would have enough blockers to stay alive. However, he would lose all of his rats by blocking at that stage.
Yep.
So letting them trade off here allows him to make a rat, activate Mutavault, and then put 3 3s in front of 2 2s.
There's another Fanatic, and that should do it. All right,
will
Gino
do it.
Bautista up a game here with Mono Red Aggro. As we move on to the sideboard here, Gino's 2 copies of Searing Blood, 4 Skull Cracks, 4 Mizium Mortars, 3 copies of Burning Earth, and 2 copies of Hammer of Perforos.
You're the red aficionado here, so where do you go from here?
So I really like Hammer of Perforos in this matchup. They're trying to beat you with removal. It gives you some game even if they cast Drown in Sorrow. It's the best card that Mono Red Aggro has to sideboard in against Mono Black, in my opinion. I don't like Skullcrack very much in the matchup, even though there is some life gain.
Sure.
The games are much more about slogging through Desecration Demon than they are about trying to burn them out.
Okay.
So all the creatures matter, and you're trying to outpace the removal as well. And I generally like Searing Blood in the matchup as well, especially if they show Lifebane Zombie. Then I'm happy moving up to the full 4 because they have Pack Rat and Mutavault, and you can also often double team it with another card.
Okay.
But I like basically the Searing Bloods and the Hammer Perforoses in this matchup.
Okay, so it looks like 4 to go in. Likely Boros Reckoner, I think, is the weakest in the main deck.
Boros Reckoner is pretty bad.
Yeah,
that would be my vote.
Yeah, they're all kind of interchangeable. They're just dudes. But
Yeah, correct.
I think Boros Reckoner the least efficient dude in this particular matchup. On Mike's side, we have access to 1 Whip of Erebos. I believe that's 1. It might be 4. It's kind of hard to tell.
Yeah, it's 2 Bile Blights in the main, so there's 1 more.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, one Whip of Erebos, 1 Bile Blight, 1 Pithing Needle, 1 Read the Bones, 1 Freakish Cure, 1 Drown in Sorrow. A lot of 1-ofs there. 2 Dark Betrayal, 2 Erebos God of the Dead, 2 Doomblade, and 3 Duress. Having seen as many small attackers as he has seen, I have to assume he's going to go for the Doomblades, the Freakish Cure, the Bile Blight, and the Drown in Sorrow. I don't think that he wants anything else. There's an argument for Whip of Erebos, but I'm not sure he even has time for that kind of effect in this matchup.
I think Whip's not bad in the matchup.
It's not bad, but I don't know if I'm excited to board it in. It really just comes down to how much space he can make. He has 4 underworld connections. I don't think he can cut those fast enough. He has a main deck Duress and 4 Thoughtseize. I don't think he needs all of those effects. It's actually plenty of room. So, yeah, I'd say that he will go for the Whip then as well.
In my experience, Thoughtseize is still fine in the matchup.
Sure.
If I know that I'm playing against... Now Gino's list has a lot of devotion elements to it, so it's hard to know exactly what you're playing against. if I know that Searing Blood is in the opposing list, then the first priority is removing Underworld connections. The second is actually Lifebane Zombie, because Lifebane is never good, and if it ever gets hit by a Searing Blood, it's a disaster.
Interesting. Okay. Lifebane actually has targets in this matchup, for what it's worth. It can get Burning Tree Emissary or Boros Reckoner if Gino leaves them in.
It's very hard for it to get Burning Tree Emissary.
That is true.
It can happen, but it's very.
That is fair.
Very rarely have had my Burning Tree Emissary taken by Lifebane Zombie. Usually when I had it, it's because I can't cast the spells that are in my hand.
Yeah, it involves like Mountain Mutavault draws or something like that. Sure.
Correct.
Okay. So you think if you were playing in Mike's seat, you would actually cut the Lifebane Zombies, like 4 Underworld connections and then 2 to 3 Lifebane Zombie.
Yeah, I would get rid of the Duress, the Underworld connections, and then the next card to take out would be Lifebane Zombie before Thoughtseize.
Okay. That seems reasonable. So I know that you play a lot of red decks.
Yep.
In this particular standard, do you favor Fire Drinker Satyr decks or Boros Storm decks?
Fire Drinker Satyr decks.
Okay. So this is a deck then that you are actually you have some experience with, and even recently.
Yeah, I think that you need I would be playing different spells. I think that a list like this struggles so much with Corsair Crewfix that I would probably be playing Mortars main instead of Lightning Strikes.
Okay, he does have the full 4 Mizium Mortars in his sideboard.
Now that being said, the fact that you have Fanatic of Mogus in your list gives you some way to overpower those cards that the list that I typically play just either have one of your few removal spells for, or you fold.
Sure. All right, yeah, Fanatic of Mogus is, that's a card that made a lot of noise at the very beginning of this standard season. Kind of fell off the radar a little bit outside of the dedicated devotion strategies.
Yeah. You see Mike here, lead off with the Temple. Looks like a hand pretty flush with removal, and a Pack Rat.
And that is what he wants in this matchup.
Well, he may not necessarily want the Pack Rat. You see Gino has just picked up Searing Blood. And a turn 1 Rakdos Cackler. Very good opening here against Mono Black Devotion. Can either be hit by Doomblade or Ultimate Price.
Sure. And Mike going to lead with the Pack Rat rather than use any of his removal. Well, of course, he can't use his Doomblade on the Rakdos Cackler anyway. Although if he just waited a turn, I'm sure that Gino would give him a target for that Doomblade.
And there is the Searing Blood for the Pack Rat. Gino's pretty much ideal start continuing here. Sigrist all the way down to 15.
Yeah, when you're in the spot where you have a turn 2 Pack Rat against what you have to assume is removal, it's honestly, even though I think you're right that Gino wants it to play out this way, it's not necessarily a terrible spot for Mike to force Gino to spend his second turn playing a spell rather than committing another permanent to the board.
Absolutely, yeah, it's not necessarily the end of the world here. You see Gino here with a Burning Tree Emissary, nothing to follow up with besides just a Lightning Strike to the head.
Yeah, now in Mike's spot, I have no idea if I like the idea of being lightning striked right now. Like that's either a good sign or a really, really bad one.
Well, given, you've seen Gino's list go all the way up to 4 mana there, so there's a reasonable chance he just has nothing to cast here.
Sure.
Mike just passing the turn back.
Yeah, well, and Gino, not only did he just strike to the head, but he missed his 3rd land drop.
Yeah.
So we know plenty of spells and have to assume that at least some of them are Fanatics of Mogus.
So you see Gino here finally pick up a 3rd land and drop Hammer Perforos onto the table. Here is Lifebane Zombie from Mike. Sees a hand of multiple copies of Fanatic of Mogus and a Lightning Strike.
Sees bad, bad news.
Remember, Mike already down to 12.
Does have that Doomblade, so has some interaction, but quickly running out of gas here, actually. Just has 2 removal spells, has the Lifebane, but has to assume that's going to eat a Lightning Strike here shortly.
And here comes Lifebane Zombie across for 3.
And it looks like Gino picked up a Skullcrack, so he's going to choose to take the 3, playing around a potential the Grey Merchant of Asphodel. Although if I'm in his spot, I think I end step the Lightning Strike regardless.
Sure. So here is a Fanatic of Mogus with the trigger on the stack. That's going to draw a Hero's Downfall there from Mike. Mike falls to 10. A lot of removal spells in hand. Is he going to be able to weather the storm with this Hammer Perforos?
Is that the second Doomblade, it looks like? So, yeah, is going to be able to kill the next 3 creatures that show up. But Gino has a hammer, so he's not going to run out of creatures.
Here's another Fanatic. Trigger on the stack here. I imagine Mike is going to kill this, and he does. Uses the Doomblade.
Yeah, those 2 Fanatics of Mogus, some of the more powerful cards in Gino's deck in terms of pure card, pound for pound, what this card actually does. those were some weak Fanatics of Mogus. Those were very effectively mitigated by Mike.
So just another attack here.
Yeah, and Gino holding on to that lightning strike, I think, with the assumption that he's going to want to go to the head with it eventually. He's getting to the point where there is a strong argument for actually getting this Lifebane zombie out of the way.
Yep. So we're going to see an Eidolon here. We'll see if that prompts any response from Mike. This is another issue that I have with Skullcrack in the matchup is your mana is just tied up doing other things.
Yep. You
see Hammer, Perforos, Mutavault. There's definitely things for Gino to do with his mana. It's a big cost for him to just pass with 2 mana up.
Sure. It works out a little better for him when he has a hammer in play. He can pass, and then if he doesn't need the Skullcrack, he can make a Golem.
Mm-hmm.
Although probably up until this turn, he's really needed his lands too much to actually be able to make those plays.
So Hero's Downfall there, that's going to trigger the Eidolon.
Yeah, Mike falls to 6. That is dead, given the cards that are in Gino's hand. Now, Mike can gain a life with Devour Flesh targeting himself.
But not really a long-term plan.
No. Yeah, not against a Mutavault and a Hammer of Perforos.
So Lifebane Zombie coming across again here. That's going to knock Gino down to 8. Here's a Lightning Strike at the end of the turn. Gino untaps, he draws.
Yeah, Gino's in a weird spot here. Has to suspect that, Mike has something. But just going to go for the Skullcrack to leave Mike alive, but still in a very precarious position here.
So there's the Devour Flesh in response on Mike's own Lifebane Zombie, leaving him at exactly 1. Gino's going to activate Hammer, Perforos, make a Golem token.
He's checking to see if he can target them with Doomblade. He can, I believe.
Yes.
They are... Well, Doomblade doesn't care if they're artifacts or not, actually, but...
And that's just going to be hit with a Bile Blade, so Mike's going to get one more draw at it. It is Pack Rat.
All right, well, that would stabilize him if it weren't for this Fanatic of Mogus in his hand.
There's a Fanatic of Mogus, and even with the trigger on the stack, that's going to kill it. Mike Sigrist down, and Gino Bautista now 8-0 with Mono Red Aggro. Pretty convincing win over Mono Black Devotion.
Yeah, for sure. Doing quick work, as Mono Red Aggro tends to do.
Yeah, and drew a lot of his best cards post-board, a Searing Blood that had a juicy target, and a Hammer of Perforos, all critical players in that match.
Yeah, I think both of the cards that you said would go in actually showed up and did excellent work.
It's not totally clear if the extra Searing Bloods came in because he has 2 in the main deck, and some people think that 2 and not 4 is the right number against Mono Black Devotion. A lot of it just has to do with the 3-drop that you see. When you see Lifebane Zombie, they can all come in.
Okay.
When it's Night Veil Spectre, usually I just want to have the 2. But